I've been accused of arguing for my limitations before, and I would like to have a discussion about this without maybe going down that particular
It's all right.
route.
It's all right. Well, why does anyone argue for their limitations? Let's start right there. That's a really good discussion. Why would anyone argue for their limitation?
Because I have, in my case, it's because I have a practical experience of doing something that I'd like to have a different outcome.
Yes.
And I keep trying different things.
Yes.
Sometimes it works. A lot of times it comes back to the same thing.
You're trying different things in the same category of practicality. Live at home, live in a facility, same subject. Have a roommate, live by yourself. Live in my house, live in your house. Still, it sounds like a whole bunch of different choices, but they're all exactly the same sucky choices. Because it's all about reality. It's not about source energy flowing, and it's not about uplifting, and it's not about getting into your true power, and it's not about daydreaming, and it's not about inspiring, and it's not about refreshing. It's about the belief in the physical decline of human beings.
Well, I get that, and I agree with you on that. And there's a little more to the story that maybe I should have been quicker to say it.
We can hardly wait.
You're going to like it. So she is exhibiting all the signs of dementia, and she's got another little issue. And I come across situations like last night where, smart TVs now, they'll go to some channel that's on the internet, and, for somebody that can't work a remote, she can't get it off there. So it went to this lovely, fluffy animal channel. And there's all these kittens and dogs and puppies and stuff, and she's watching for hours and hours and hours. Because I've taken her car keys. She's under house arrest because there's no way she's getting behind the wheel of a car. And so she's watching this, and then I get these panicked phone calls either in the middle of the night or the next day I come over. We have to do something right now about the animals in distress in her backyard. That she wants to get a hold of that company that was on TV, which is just a production company making a fluffy animal show. And we went round and round about this, and I'm trying to tell her, Mom, there's no animals in your backyard, and if they are, they belong there. They're part of nature. They're okay. Everything's okay. And while I'm doing this, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, how much do I have to meditate to make this okay? And at the same time, I can feel myself going down the rabbit hole, and then I can feel myself coming out of it.
We would just like you to meditate as much as you tell that story.
I am telling you.
Just meditate as much as you tell that story. In other words, we know there is a reality that you are facing, and we are not making fun of you or wanting to diminish the discomfort that you're feeling in it. Because if you didn't really have a strong desire, then you wouldn't be involved in any of this at all. We understand the importance of the relationship and how you want to make it better.
And I get what you're saying, that every moment by moment, we create. And if I'm even telling that story, I'm creating it and reinforcing it, where I need to come up with something else. And that's why I'm here. Help me come up with something else.
Well, the easy way to do this is to just pick another stick in the bundle. But to most humans, that doesn't feel like solving that problem. But it feels like you've got to solve that problem, and so then you're focused in the practicality of that end of it. And it's hard to let go of that and find the relief of alignment, even though the relief of alignment, here's what we want to say over and over to all of you, and we really want you to hear this. The enormous power of non-resisted thought. So there's no power in any of those thoughts, even though they're logical, even though they're relevant, even though they're truths. There's no power in them.
But they're recreating. Isn't there the power with that?
Law of attraction causes everything to maintain or to become more. It actually did become more because you put it on a channel, and then she got more worried about it, and now you're getting calls in the middle of the night about the specific subject that she's wanting. That did get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But what we're asking you to do, we're not asking you to find a solution that you can teach to her so that her experience can feel better. We're asking you to find a solution that can feel better to you. We're asking you to get out of that maze, which will just take you down another rabbit hole, which will bother your mother.
Yeah, the rabbit needs saving. Yeah, okay. You're funny. I gotta tell you.
We can wait, which will bother your mother. Or you can reach for the stream of consciousness that your inner being has about the whole thing. For example, you said your mother has dementia, and we want to say about that, on this end of the stick, this is her way of getting off of all of those subjects that are driving her crazy.
I agree. I don't like the word, but I don't know what the descriptor is on the other end.
My mother withdraws from the details she doesn't like by focusing outside of those details, and they call it dementia. I call it giving up the practicality and reaching for the non-physical energy. That's what's happening with all of these people that are being diagnosed with dementia. It's their way of coping with your society hammers at you. How do you cope when you know, when you focus not on the zit in comparison with the well-being? How do you stand it when you focus upon the details of all of the suffering that's going on your planet, as you fight with each other about the way that you're going to resolve that suffering? In other words, you just spin around in your own juices and disempower yourself and each other while you bring yourself to a place that the only way out is dementia.
Yeah, you got to make a new world and go into that.
But for those like you who aren't in that house, for those like you who aren't having to live all of those details and aren't needing to repeat all those details, who really doesn't need to nightmare about all those details. You don't need to keep nightmaring about them. You don't need to do that. A good son would, you think. A good son would be right there, would suffer right along, would do everything that you can. But nightmaring, even about things that are real, is the opposite of what your inner being is doing. And the reason that it feels so awful is because when you do it, even though it seems like the only thing you can do or the only practical thing that could be done, when you do it, you leave the frequency of your inner being, and that's why it feels so bad. You don't feel bad because of what's going on over there. You feel bad because your perspective of what's going on over there is so separated from the perspective of what your inner being knows.
I agree, but I don't notice any path to that connection to the inner being at that time. I mean, there's so much energy going on.
So let's do something about this right now. So let's have a conversation, a practical conversation of what someone, you've laid this out really well, someone who's living something that you really don't want to live. We're just going to lead and see if you can discover a path of lesser resistance. These are the facts. My mom lives how far away from me?
10 minutes.
10 minutes away from me, in a house owned by
Her.
With other people who are
Paying tenants.
My mother is, in terms of her usual attitude, annoyed or easygoing.
Oh, annoyed.
My mother is annoying or easy to be with.
Annoying.
All right. Well, everybody who spends any time with her would agree.
And that's not to say there aren't times when it's
All right. It's all right. So there you are with that acknowledgement. So now let's see if we can find a path of lesser resistance. My mother is annoyed, and I don't blame her. My mother is annoyed with no good reason.
Am I choosing?
Yeah, choose one or the other.
My mother is annoyed with no good reason. That's what gets me.
That does get you, but what would feel better? My mother is annoyed with no good reason. Or my mother is annoyed and she's got good reason. So you gave her the benefit of the doubt just a little bit, and in the process released your own resistance just a little bit. Nothing ever changes with her. She just spins around and around in her own juices. Maybe things could change.
Maybe things could change.
So we're not asking for logic. We liked your answer. We're asking for what feels better to you. I should be doing more.
Actually, when I said maybe things could change, that was logic for me as well. Because I know,
well, that's even better.
As I do for me, it has the effect out there in the world. And I've seen that happen with
that's
her
even better.
And other people. So, yeah.
So my attention is of benefit to her. My attention makes no difference whatsoever.
Oh, my attention's a benefit.
My attention, which is of benefit to her, is hard on me, My attention, which is of benefit to her, doesn't need to be hard on me.
The second one. Yeah. Let me say it. My attention, which is a benefit to her, does not need to be hard on me.
Yeah. I would like to be inspired to some practical solutions, but I don't think I can find them because this has been going on for a while. Or I would like to be inspired to some practical solutions.
I'd like to be inspired to some practical solutions.
These practical solutions better get here damn quick. I'm willing to experience the exhilaration of discovering them because they indicate my releasing of resistance too.
I'm willing to experience the exhilarance of discovering them because it signifies my release of resistance too.
The idea of the path of least resistance is a valid concept. The idea of the path of least resistance indicates weakness.
Oh, the idea of the path of least resistance is a valid concept.
The path of least resistance equals the path of most allowance. The path of least resistance.
The path of least resistance equals most allowance. Come on.
This path of most allowance is the path to broader perspective, which feels so good. I appreciate having a situation where I'm deliberately required to reach for the path of least resistance because it's not just presenting itself to me like pretty flowers do. Pretty flowers, easy mothers, lovely puppies unless they're being killed by monsters in the backyard. It's easy. It's really easy to feel good when good things are presented. But something that isn't quite that easy to feel that good about, which requires me to dig a little deep and actually make choice. More resistance, less resistance, more resistance, less resistance. So I get this sense that as thought by thought, which is not that hard to do, I can accomplish less resistance, I will begin to feel the momentum of it. And if there's enough momentum that is gathered, then ideas begin occurring to me. Ideas that really have a lot of bang for their buck. Ideas that I can really feel the importance and the power of. I believe that my inner being has a path of least resistance relative to this subject. And I believe that my mother's inner being has a plan or a very clear path of least resistance about this. And all I want to do is know what that plan is. All I want to do is get out of the way of it. And I'm beginning to understand that as I'm struggling in the details where we're all just spinning around in our own juices, we're not getting anywhere, and we're all sort of resenting each other because we all innately feel that there is a path of least resistance. I know in my heart of hearts, I know at the very core of my being that we're all here for a great reason. When I think of mother, I can think of mother trouble, or I can think of mother the other end of the stick, my avenue into this experience. I can think of all of the wisdom that she offered to me. I can think of mother in trouble, or I can think of mother who is an extension of source energy, who has source energy all over her. I can think of mother who is really suffering from the details of maybe what she's living, or who has found a path of lesser resistance where she doesn't suffer so much. I'm really pretty proud of her, the way she's going about finding her path of least resistance, and I'm going to follow her lead, and I'm going to follow my path of least resistance about all of this. Nothing's going wrong here. There really is nothing wrong. We have a perception as physical beings that when people start declining, that something's going really wrong, when all that's happening is they're readying themselves for the reemergence into the whole of who they are. Nothing's going wrong here except that I keep thinking there's something going wrong here. Nothing's going wrong here except that I keep feeling responsible for the things that I think are going wrong here. But when I step back from it a little bit, I realize that not only is nothing going wrong, but I'm certainly not responsible for what's going wrong. I'm responsible for one thing and one thing only. I'm responsible for discovering my own path of least resistance and practicing it until it's an easy path to take no matter what else is going on. And I, for one, make a claim to this universe. I'm not going to get dementia in order to find the path of least resistance. But it's all right with me that some people find the path of least resistance in that way. Helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Good time for a segment of reflection.